everyone for attending. Let me just go ahead and share my screen. I guess you can all see my screen now.
Yes, we can see it.
Awesome. Great. So wonderful to have all of you here. I'm Vibhanshu Abhishek. I'm the CEO and founder of Alltius. I also lead secondary life. I've been a professor at Carnegie Mellon and more recently at UC Irvine. So I've been working in this area for the last 15 years or so, specifically in large language model for the last 5 years. So really fascinated and excited to talk to you about what we're doing here at Alltius. Something that I've worked very closely on for my entire academic career has been how to drive value from AI. And I think there is immense potential. I think John talked about it in the previous few slides. There's immense potential that GenAI can bring to companies. So quick introduction about Alltius, and then we'll get into the use cases that we are solving. We started life about 2 years ago. A lot of this, what we're doing in the company is based on research that I have done with some of my colleagues at UPenn, Carnegie Mellon, and more recently at UC Irvine. I think we have been fortunate to have some really amazing customers who have trusted us, a very early stage company, to take things to production. We've been in production since last October, I would say. At tremendous scale now, we can handle 100,000 queries per hour today. And I'm excited to say that we have been able to deliver about $4 million in ROI in the last 6 months or so. We mostly work with financial customers, large enterprise customers in the financial space across a few different verticals. So we work with insurance companies, banking, and fintech customers. But typically, our USP is very high volume, very high accuracy requirements in industries where the information is changing very rapidly. So I do take John's cue on talking about knowledge work. Really, the industry that we are focused on, the knowledge is changing very rapidly, and how we can assimilate all that information and add value to the entire ecosystem. Just for this talk, we have the special offer going on. So we have a 14-day premium access pass to all of Alltius premium features. There's a QR code. I think it will be another slide too, so I'm not going to hold you here. But you can just scan it and you'll have access to all the enterprise features that we have to offer on the platform. Now, I just want to go back into what's broken, what's the real problem that we are trying to solve. I always think of technology as secondary as a business school professor. The problem that we're trying to solve here is when we look at customer journeys across, I think everyone can relate to this, that customer journeys are considerably broken. We are talking to multiple people at multiple points in time, even though we are interacting with the same company. And we have created different divisions. We have someone in marketing, we have someone in sales, someone in pre-sales, someone in customer support, someone in success who's talking to us, and there is loss in translation when that happens. And clearly, most of these folks do not even have the information about how a customer interacted with the brand or service in their journey. So we feel that we have tried to solve the problem in the wrong way, which is bring a lot of tooling to solve this problem and have different people who are trying to solve the problem. And this is particularly important in the case of financial services because it's complex. There is a ton of information, both structured and unstructured, that brings in the context. There is a lot of attrition that happens in this industry all across the board, from salespeople to support people to everyone else in between. And there is a high degree of personalization that's required. Everyone has different needs, and these needs need to be met in a very particular way. So, if you combine all of these issues with what generative AI can offer today, it can assimilate different pieces of information and reason with that. It can help knowledge workers come up to speed with different pieces of information and do their task better. And there is a degree of hyper-personalization that can happen here, which could not have happened before. We really have a winning solution that can really transform how customers interact with financial service companies. And so that's really where we are going after. These are the problems that we are solving. I'm happy to take any comments as I talk through what we're doing here at Alltius. Now, this is all great, right? I think GenAI is great. This is a great solution to a great problem. Almost every customer we talk to says this is a problem that they have. Some variant of this problem is a problem that they're facing. But why hasn't GenAI been adopted across the board? I think we're seeing some early signs of that, but we haven't seen the mass exodus that I would have expected. One reason is it takes a lot of time and effort to go from a prototype to production. That's a journey that we have walked in the last 2 years, and some of our customers are walking the journey as we speak, right? There are a lot of data issues, a lot of privacy issues. Customers are very wary of sending data outside to open LLMs. I think many folks have talked about these issues in the previous talks in the GenAI lab, so I'm not going to delve in too much into depth into that. The other issue is hallucination, right? These models are not very reliable, so how do we make them reliable? And the fourth thing which I really care about is how do we deliver ROI at the end of the day, right? I've seen this with AI projects, 80 to 90% of AI projects fail. How do we make sure that 80 to 90% of GenAI projects are not failing? How do we ensure that when they hit production, they're actually delivering financial ROI? So that's how we are trying to solve the problem using our platform called Alltius, where you can create different type of GenAI assistants to affect different parts of the customer journey. Right now, very heavily focused on customer support and sales, because these are areas that we can see quick ROI in. But it can be we are seeing expansion across the entire customer lifecycle. Our platform is built on 3 pillars of knowledge, skills, and channels. Knowledge is all kinds of sources that you can add to make these assistants intelligent. It can be structured and unstructured data. Skills are what these assistants can do. So Q&A would be a very basic skill, but pitch a plan or create a response to a ticket would be different skills that you can add to the assistant. And then channels is finally where you deploy this. So we have built this in a very Lego log fashion. You can pick and choose different bits and pieces based on what is it that you want to do. And really, I care about putting this tool in the hands of non-technical people. Can we put this in the hands of business people so that they can go and solve their specific business problems? And I think that is also very important to delivering ROI with these technologies. Can we make it closer to the business user who's trying to solve the business problems, give them the tools that they can use to then solve the specific instance of that problem. So let me talk. I wanted to talk about 3 case studies, and we'll see how I'm doing with time. And Paul, you can please, if you can give me like a heads up 5 minutes before, that would be great.
You're doing great, Vibs. Thanks.
Awesome. So I'll talk about Prudential. Everyone knows about Prudential. This is Prudential Life. They sell health insurance, one of the biggest insurance companies in the US. For some of you who might not know the healthcare sector or the insurance sector as well, a lot of this selling happens during open enrollment, the kind of plans that Prudential sells. So essentially, this is between October to December is when a lot of the insurance selling is happening, especially in the Medicare and the ACA space. So every year they go through the cycle of hiring a lot of insurance agents. They train them for 6 months. And then these guys sell insurance for 2 months. And most of them are really bad. On average, 70% of the workforce is not very good, right? So they spend a lot of time training. And then unfortunately, after they've hired them and the selling season is over, they end up firing most of these people. So they go through this cycle every year. And you can imagine, someone is productive for 2 months of the year, and then they're paying the salaries for about 8 to 9 months of the year. So the problem they came to us was, hey, we have about 6,000 insurance plans that we sell. There are a lot of complexities in selling insurance. Can we build an assistant that can take up all the complexities of these plans, understand the different facets of these plans, and offer assistance to the seller who's selling them? That was one of the biggest tasks that the problem that they wanted to solve. The second problem they wanted to solve was new agent onboarding. As I mentioned, like every year they're going through the cycle of hiring new agents to sell insurance. And these are stay-at-home parents. They are folks who are retired. So it takes a lot of training for them to become productive. And so they wanted help with new agent onboarding. And the third thing, which is, if any of you have bought insurance on the phone, you would have realized this. I call in, I have a few different requirements, and this customer, the salesperson is now going through all these plan documents to find out which plans are most relevant to me. So they're looking for this information on the fly a lot of times, and the customer is just waiting on hold, right? So can we reduce the amount of time it takes to service a customer, but at the same time, can we improve the customer experience? So these was really, the big three problem statements that they came up with. This was sometime last year. ChatGPT was recently launched. I think we started working with them even before ChatGPT launched. So we were working with them for quite some time, and I think sometime in summer of last year is when we launched this POC for them.
Vibs, wait, excuse me, Vibs, we do have one question. Go ahead, John.
Yeah.
Yes, first of all, fantastic. Two questions. One, have you had any chance to measure impact on a dependent variable like sales adjusting for, client? I did a study like that many years ago. I'm happy to send you.
So I have put on
Second thing,
yeah.
second question. You're right in the wheelhouse of any sales organization. Tell us how you navigate, proprietary versus shareable.
Great point, John. So let me talk quickly about ROI. We have very clearly, I'm an econometrician by training. So, that's one thing I did. How do we set up an experiment to measure the impact of this? So we have seen two very, very distinct impacts. One is the onboarding time has gone from 6 months to 2 months. So they're able to onboard people very quickly. And if you look at what that does to their bottom line, they were paying these people at least for 8 to 9 months. Now they're paying them for 4 to 5 months. So really, the labor costs has gone down by 50%. So very big impact on the P&L of the company. Second impact we have seen is it has had these agents are able to sell 30% better. So on average, these agents are able to sell 30% better. But if you look at people in the lower decile, they are able to sell, as close as what the median salesperson was doing earlier. So dramatic impact on the kind of sales that these agents are able to bring in now. And this was the first year that we really ran the experiment. Data is still coming in. We'll continue doing this. And now we have a few other insurance customers that we're working with on a very similar skew. The second question.
Yeah, go ahead.
The second question was, how do we think about proprietary data? From the get-go, we thought about privacy and security is the first order issue that we need to solve. So we have two different offerings. One is a SaaS offering, which is everything is hosted on our platform. Even that is very secure. We have all the security certifications. But the interesting thing that we have done is we have this separation between, we have this symbolic AI layer and the generative AI layer. And the symbolic AI layer is where all the customers' data resides. And this layer is built like customer by customer. So it's in an encrypted storage format like S3 bucket for that specific customer. We don't have access to it till they actually give us access to it. And all the data is encrypted at rest in that storage and used only at runtime. Second is we pass on only pieces of the information to the LLM, where we are LLM agnostic. So we can use our own hosted LLM if the customer wants to be in our security parameter. Or even if it is going to an open LLM like GPT-4 or Claude, it is not sending all the content. And it's anonymized content that's getting sent to those LLMs. Of course, we have an on-prem deployment model, so we can go and deploy in our customers' VPC, where they are manning all the resources. Typically, that makes sense economically for larger customers. For smaller customers, it's not worth the cost to deploy in their own VPC. So I hope it answers your question, John.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's two questions online here. Eduardo asked, what was the process of training the large language model with the client's data?
Great question. So Eduardo, like I said, we have this we have two different distinct parts of a platform, the symbolic AI layer and the generative AI layer. When we are training we are not training the LLM on the customer's data. We only do that on the fine tuning and everything that we do. We do this on our own data or on public data. The customer's data is coming in to train the symbolic AI layer, which is our representation of the customer's knowledge base. So we have vector stores, we have knowledge graphs, we can process structured data. And this is based on a lot of my research for the last 2 decades of how do we combine data from all of these different sources. And we have our own ingestion formats, which can read different types of images, videos. So we try to get the most juice out of all the knowledge that a customer has, but represent it in their specific container. And so that is not going to the LLM to train the LLM. The LLM training is happening on our data or publicly available data.
That's great. And one other question from Steve. Are you finding most of your competition is internal development teams that want to do it themselves, or traditional kind of big 6 or big 4 consulting shops?
I think it's interesting. Initially, it was a lot of internal teams. Everyone wanted to get on this bandwagon. I think people have realized that it's difficult to do this themselves after having played around with this for 6 months. So they're more agreeable. In our sales process, we try to find out, who's trying to look for information and who's actually a serious customer. We are partnering with a few big consulting firms to take this solution to market. But yeah, I think my general take is people are willing to work with startups like us, but they're also more willing to work with vendors that they have historical relationships with. So that's why Accenture is able to sell $2 billion worth of GenAI consulting. So I think this is both happening in the market. Some people are more willing to work with startups. Some people are more willing to work with large consulting firms. We are trying to navigate that by actually trying to make inroads through some of these like BCG, Accenture type firms.
And one question I have before we go back to presentation: we've seen a lot of customer VIBs really struggle with the change management issue. To one airline working with, all the agents said, "Listen here, if I support this, they're just going to take my job." So the world, yeah. How's Prudential handling that you can share publicly? Is incentives? Is it make more money? Is it different culture? Are they protected?
So this is an interesting use case because it's a sales use case. The sales agents are becoming more productive. So everyone wins in this game. If you look at customer support, you are actually, if the dream is to be realized, I have a few use cases on that. We have been able to reduce the call center, number of people in the call centers, for example, or people on the help desk. I think I think it depends on who you're selling to, right? One is it definitely creates a better customer experience, which helps the company. Our sweet spot are companies that are growing very rapidly. So they're not really firing people, but they can do a lot more with the same amount of staff that they have. So I think that is generally tends to be a sweet spot where we do not see so much resistance from, let's say, the support teams to say, oh, I'm not going to fire 50% of my staff. But we need to grow. We cannot grow by hiring more people. I think the Jerry example that John was mentioning. But I would expect that on the support side, there would be a reduction in the number of support staff you need. We are seeing that across some of the smaller customers already. I don't think incentivization is such a big deal because the person whose ROI we are driving cares about reducing support cost. So at least their metric is being met. Of course, people are losing their jobs, and I think they have creative ideas in terms of what can be done, what other jobs they can move to. But I would say that people are in general happier. Like some of these tickets, L1, L2 tickets, no one really wants to handle those tickets. They're boring. They are just a cost of doing business. And these guys can get upskilled to doing more complicated tasks in the organization.
Great. One other quick question go ahead, Tim Andrews, and then we'll go back to the presentation.
Hi, great presentation. I'm very interested. I'm curious about a couple things about your mention of a symbolic layer. So it sounds like a extended RAG architecture. You mentioned vector databases, and knowledge graphs.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of curiosities. A, is there more than that? And B, how much effort does it take to set up things like that, particularly the knowledge graph, which is
Right.
generally a lot more complex than just doing a vector database?
Right. So let me see if I have a slide that I can really pull up very quickly. Um, let's see. I was not planning to go through all those slides, but I think it's somewhere in the back end. Let me see where it's gone. Tim, I'll just quickly walk you through instead of spending time looking for it. So it is actually not just so it's fairly complicated in how it's structured, because what we want, if you think of a RAG, for example, it's very good at matching semantically, right, things, but it has no sense of completeness. You can't get completeness out of a RAG. The knowledge graph, on the other hand, is good for searching through things that have relationships. I can search along relationships, which vector DBs can't do. And of course, structured data cannot do. Structured DBs are very good at speed when you have structured data. So all of these different data types we see have different advantages, and that's why we have tried to combine them. But it's not like three different data stores. They are actually living and breathing together. So we can leverage the knowledge graph to search the vector DB better, or vice versa. And the way we operationalize this is, there is that knowledge store that resides in all of these different formats. But then there is these agents that can go and query the right data source based on what needs to be done. So let's say I am a customer, I'm an insurance customer, I call in and I'm asking information about my explanation of benefits. There's some information residing in my plan document. There's some information residing in my backend database, the customer database, right? So we now need to pull information from these two different sources, which will be, it's part of the same knowledge base, but different databases that I need to pull this information from. How that happens is the agent is then trying to figure out what pieces of information I need and where are the data sources to go and pull that and then synthesize that information. So it is, so that whole data ingestion, data retrieval, and data storage and data retrieval is a separate entity or a block by itself that's very interconnected. And the vector DB is an important part of that, but it's a very small part of that whole architecture of how do we query and retrieve information. So essentially, it's like a search engine on steroids, but focused on that company's data.
Okay, and you said you have sort of agents that know what to do and where to look. So don't they have to be specific to each company? Are they tailored for each company's resources in these various data stores? Okay.
Yeah, so that's
Thanks.
the linkage that our customers are doing. They're making the connector. So saying, hey, let's say I have an email drafter that needs to do 5 things. What are the different sources it has access to? And they're making those API connections or giving us the token to go and access those databases.
Okay. Thanks.
And Vibs, I appreciate you answering all the questions. We're a very active learning group, which is good at one level.
Yeah.
Vivek Online asks, it seems that the AI bot is assisting the salespeople instead of engaging with the customers. Is that correct? And then what value do you see the salespeople adding?
That's a great point. So, we think of this as being along the entire customer continuum. I'll just go back to the slide here. So there are different pieces of this, right? One is we can have a self-serve assistant sitting on the website that can help in the sales function, or a pre-sales function. Then it can be an assistant to the salesperson who can sell better. Or it can be a self-help support bot, or it can be an assistant to the support team. So we don't, we really want to create technology that can enhance the customer experience, but it can be used at different points. I don't have the perspective that all the sales will be done by AI in the future, or all the support will be done by AI in the future. I think the human elements of this are very important, especially when you're looking at customer interactions. And we pull in the right person and equip them with the right tools to be able to sell better, right? So in the insurance case, in the Prudential case, that use case started out as a sales use case, but then we're also moving into the domain of support, where it's more self-serve. The first use case was, how do we make the agent sell better? in the second use case is how do we automate a lot of the servicing. And I think it can expand the spectrum. We have customers where we are improving like automating support, but we are also helping the support teams do things better. So we really want to help customers along the continuum, whatever a company requires to improve their interaction with customers. We want to be in that layer. I hope that answers that question.
Vibs, Julie's got a related question from a management standpoint. How does management know that the quality, either in like a self-service or CSR in the loop, is actually better? So all the automation metrics go up. Is the quality metrics going down, or how is quality measured?
No, I think let me see if I have a slide on that somewhere. But if not, I can actually bring this up. So these are some metrics that we're talking about. This is on the sales side, but typically we also measure, we run A/B tests to measure what are some important metrics to track. So on the sales side, like I was mentioning to John, we have looked at, is the per agent sales going up? Is the training time going down, right? These are very high level metrics that we are tracking. But we are also tracking customer satisfaction metrics. And customer satisfaction metrics have gone up in the sales side. When we look at this on the support side of things too, we see very similar outcomes. I think the first thing you should keep in mind is if you have a call center or a help desk, your mean time to response is probably on the order of 4 to 5 hours, even if you have the best in class help desk. Unless you have an account manager that is on speed dial, typically it will take 4 or 5 hours for a support person to get back to you. Now, most of the queries, what you realize, 70 to 80% of the queries are queries that can be answered in a few seconds. So just doing that really improves customer satisfaction. The fact that I can get an answer to a question, I'm doing something, I can get an answer to the question that helps me resolve that problem or pain point and move on, is a very big, enabler for the customer, and that drives your NPS up. And then, of course, we look at all of these general support metrics, right? Because we're so ROI focused, we look at what is the top level ROI for our customers and see how that is getting affected with and without our tools. So typically we deploy things in A/B testing. The pilot phase would be doing some kind of an A/B test to see directionally are we going in the right direction, and then sort of roll it out to the entire company or that particular function in the company.
Vibs, this is fantastic. Why don't you go 3 more minutes and then we'll turn over the open mic. But I know
okay.
I take 3 minutes.
So I had a few other use cases. Okay, I want to quickly talk about one other use case that we have. This is Angel One. It's the second biggest brokerage in India. They have grown from about 15 million customers to about 22 million customers since we started working with them in the last 6 months. So really hyper growth. I would say some of that is because of us, but not really. They've been advertising like crazy and they've been growing like crazy. But they have over 1,000 agents handling 500,000 tickets monthly. The resolution times is typically 30 minutes to an hour for assistance. And this is like, you're placing a trade and your trade is not going through, or you place an order, it's not showing up in your account and you're like, where's my money? So this is really time critical. And people are waiting 30 minutes to get response on that. Given that you have 10,000 agents, there's a huge degree of disparity in their skill levels in how to answer and support these customers. And of course, the product is changing very rapidly. It's the financial market in India is very dynamic. There is new policy every other week. So things are changing very rapidly in that environment. So it's a challenge for even the best of the agents to keep up with all the changes in regulation and what's happening and whatnot. So it's a knowledge management problem at the end of the day. At the core of this problem is knowledge management. So for Angel One, essentially it's a self-service bot. We are the front line before things hit the help desk. So it can answer questions. It can run different workflows for customers to place orders or to verify their documents and whatnot. And here we have deep integrations with the APIs. So we can recognize what the customer is trying to do and help the customer achieve the task that they are interested in. One thing I'll point out here is this Copilot-like ability is a big enabler for some of these customers. because they're trading for the first time. They might not know how to trade in the best fashion. And so the Copilot really helps them get up to speed very, very quickly. So not only is it helping them, helping Angel One reduce the support cost, but it's also enabling their customers to do a lot more. So they're, on average, we have seen the volumes of trade increase by 20% per customer after they start using this, after this is released to them.
This is
So-
fantastic. Vibs, a really wonderful, I'm sorry, you want to finish up this one? Yeah.
I'll just sort of talk about the quick ramp up. We started out, this was sometime in October last year. First week, we did 3,000 queries across all customers from Angel One. Today, we are doing about 20,000 queries per hour. So we have grown like, I don't know, I can't do that quick math right now, but we have grown immensely in a matter of 5 to 6 months in terms of the volume that we are handling. And we're seeing similar volumes at other customers too. And I think the key has been, the secret sauce here is not really GenAI part of it. It's really engineering, like old school engineering. How do you build scalable distributed systems, running multiple nodes of these LLMs that can process this information very fast? Of course, there's a lot of prompt engineering, there's a lot of optimization and everything that's gone on in the background. But I would say more than the science of it, as a NLP scientist or a data scientist, it's really the engineering that has made all of this scale possible for us.
Really, really wonderful. Vibs, last question. And so you've been a pioneer and a leader in this space. What surprised you most from May 20th last year to May 20th this year? Can you even remember 12 months ago?
I don't know, I would say as an entrepreneur, it's just like you're living day to day, right? You don't even have the time to process what was happening a year ago. But I think it's been fascinating. I think the amount of demand that we have seen, like, I think initially there was skepticism. People were afraid, especially on taking these things to production. But I think there's just so much enthusiasm, which I would not have expected. And what is surprising to me is even a small company like us is able to work with really large enterprises that want to take this to market. And I would not have expected that to happen at any other point in time. Like there is, you essentially start working with smaller startups like yourself, and then slowly move up the ladder. Whereas what we are seeing right now is a lot of the large enterprises are very interested in taking this to production. Of course, I think they also want to work with the Accentures of the world, but they're willing to experiment with this technology. So that has been very fascinating for me.
Alden, let's do your question, then we'll go open mic. Go ahead, Alden.
Vibs, fantastic presentation and lots and lots of learning, like taking notes. Quick question here. How do you price this, and how much of professional services involved in an enterprise deployment like this?
So both great questions. So the way we price this is volume-based pricing. Typically, we work with larger customers. So we have a floor of pricing. We have different tiers, but essentially it ranges from $5,000 per month to $20,000 per month as the base pricing, and then it's pay as you go. Depending on the data sources, there's some data sources that we can ingest without any professional service. So it's a very self-serve platform, even though we're very enterprise focused. But you can ingest, pretty much all types of documents. You can ingest images, videos, all of these types of things. Where professional services really comes in is when you're integrating with your backend APIs or your backend databases. And if you need specific skills that we don't have in a library of skills, we can develop that for you. Or if you want some specific ingestion formats or specific channels where we are not available, that would be a component of professional services. And then there is professional services for deployment on your VPC, and then support costs on that going forward.
Vibs, fabulous presentation. I know you and David Resolin I know it's taken us a while to make this happen, but it's well worth it. And
thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate the time to talk about Alltius.
That's great. Well, we just have a few minutes. Who wants to do a live mic one or two before we go?
I'll stop sharing.
Thank you. Has anyone been blown away by the announcements last week? Has anyone tried ChatGPT 4 Omni?
It's very good. It's very good. But I have one more question for Vibs, if you don't mind.
Wait, go ahead.
Ingesting all these documents, but Vibs, do you find that sometimes there are too many documents, and do you have some kind of criteria if the document is helping to the knowledge base or not? Because these enterprises, they have a lot of documents they accumulated over the years, right?
Right.
How do you handle that
That's a
problem?
So you know, the problem that we ran into at some point was if we ingest a lot of documents in the quality of the search, the semantic search uses. So what we did was we did two things. One is we started adding a lot of metadata to make the search better. So, you know, just vector search doesn't work. We use hybrid search, and we have our own method of pulling just based on keywords. So that helps quite a lot. The second thing we did was we started doing something like PageRank in terms of, you know, we know the popularity of questions and we see which segments they're coming from. So we give more importance to things that are being referred to a lot of times than things that are not being referred to, like obscure things that are not being referred to. And I was afraid that that might lead to obscure thing never surfacing. But in production, that is not really hampered us in any, it has improved the quality overall. So we might be taking a hit in some very obscure cases, but overall the quality of the results have improved dramatically.
Got you. It's a very interesting topic. You have a lot of experience with it. Thank you.
Well, yet again, we run out of time, and there's
Yeah, you know, I think that's why it's a lot of this
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, please go ahead.
I was going to close the meeting. Was that one more contribution? One more question someone had? Well, great. We'll close. A lot of learning, never enough time, but thank you, everyone. Thanks for the fabulous presentation, Vibs and John, and hopefully see many of you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.